you've poured us the Temptress, but just tell us a little bit about the previous wine and the philosophy behind the Dream.
Well, the Dream, I think, is really predicated on the fact that when we started this winery, it was a dream at the time, and my wife and I had dreamed about doing this style of wine here in Canada, and making it uniquely Canadian, even though it was based on old world tradition. And so we kept talking about it, like all of us in life. I think we keep talking about our dreams, but we don't always sort of follow up as quickly as I think we should. And there's usually kind of a test, I think, in life that if the dreams are real and if the dreams are right, then somehow nature and life reminds you of that. In our case, it was a life-threatening situation, health issue, and so we decided right after that effectively we had nothing to lose. So we got into the wine business, and we went out and bought an empty piece of land, 40 acres, and the day after. And so we often say to people, because we get a lot of people coming through the winery, and I think everybody comes to wineries particularly with a sense of awe, and they all kind of say, oh, I wish I could do that. And so we often say to people is, of course we sell wine and we want to sell wine, but really fundamentally what we sell and the most satisfaction for us is that it's an ability for people to fulfill their dreams. The fact that, look at us, we're not wealthy people that got into this, and there was a lot of risk, and there was a lot of, I think, what I call informed ignorance, whereby sometimes in life it's best not to know all of the implications of doing things.
How true.
Because you can overanalyze to the point where you say, well, I can't do that because this and this and this is going to happen. And if you go in with that attitude, that's probably what's going to happen. So we got into it with kind of a bit of a blind ignorance, but I think informed ignorance as well, to the point where we said, you know what, we have nothing to lose. This is what's really satisfying for us when people come in, they appreciate the wines that we produce, and they go away with a sense of having come to a place where they've experienced something that goes beyond just the wine. So, and that's why some of our wines are called Dream, some of them are called Temptress, the conspiracy based on the fact that in life when we try to do things, we need people to help us to be conspirators in our lives. So that's kind of the notion behind our wines.
So, moving from hopes and dreams, now we're in the sensual world of the Temptress. Tell us about this, and then tell me your impressions of this Zoltan, then just in terms of tasting notes. But Len.
So the Temptress, I mean, one of the monikers that we use in our winery is that, as you know, my wife and I were based in Milan, Italy for a few years, fell in love with this style of wine. So we often say that our winery is about a Canadian expat that falls in love with a Canadian or an Italian Temptress. So the Italian Temptress, my first Temptress, of course, is my wife. But really, when we talk about this and from a winery standpoint, it's about the wine, the Temptress. It's tempting, and there's something kind of magical about it. And so that's why it's about a Canadian expat that falls in love with an Italian Temptress. So this wine, Zoltan can tell you a little bit more about it, but it's a wine that for us helps to express what we're about.
Zoltan.
Sensual was the right word. I mean, it's very multi-layered wine. I mean, aromas of dried black fruits and raspberry, and I'm noting here plum, black plum, and chocolate, and a little bit of menthol surfacing after a while, but also some aromatic roots, beet, and black licorice root, dried purple flowers. but the suppleness, you know, the texture, you know, that round and full and luscious and everything else, it's tempting. I mean, you know, it's, you know, in the name already, but just an excellent wine, you know. Also considering the fact that, you know, not to sound negative, but 2008 was not the greatest, you know, Niagara vintage here, but I think, you know, the fact that grapes were dry to an extent of 30% or so certainly elevated and brought us a red wine that is much, very much enjoyable. Yeah. It's complex, it's dry, it's supple in the same time. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing
Okay.
your
All right.
your temptation with us.
This is